Well, good afternoon, Aristo, and good morning. It's morning still for me, 9:44.
Good
Soon
morning,
to
Ron.
9:45. And
Okay.
Aristo has a couple of directions he's going to go with us today, and I'm just going to let him talk. And if I have anything to interject, I will make that a bit available. Otherwise, we will just wait till the end and we will close. But for right now, Mr. Aristo, please take it away from Greece.
Thank you, Ron. And once again, good morning to you and hello to everybody. I'd like to make this the final empowerment video, not in essence, but in terms of title, because, and why would I call this Empo 101? Well, if somebody is considering the question of empowerment and doesn't know where to start, these titles will let them at least, and they want to reference my videos. They don't have to reference 3 years of videos and sift through them. They can reference a little, for example, I have videos on yoga a little bit, and those are specific ones. You can see the titles. But here I figured, well, empowerment is probably more a necessity than any kind of yogic practice. So if somebody is concerned and wants to check it out, I have a series of videos that address, that are introductory on the issue from my point of view. That's why I made that category. However, all the videos, in one way or another, I strive to make them about empowerment. So, but if you don't know where to start or what the basics are, I just address certain issues. So here's the final one, which may be controversial for some people. I don't consider it controversial personally, but again, people misunderstand certain terms, in my honest opinion. And I'll try to clarify as best I can and incorporate examples from things that have been going on Ron Van Dyke's site, Facebook page, some videos, maybe a post or two, threads and stuff. So the title is Empo 101. It's all about you. You see, we live in a culture that seems to promote me, me, me. We live in a culture of selfishness. We live in a culture of competition, me above everybody else. We also live in a matrix that's highly manipulative in a way that corrupts the whole concept of paradox and actually engages in contradictions, masking its paradoxes that make us take them literally. And the whole purpose of this is, in my honest opinion, to make us throw out what is useful, to throw the baby with the bathwater. We're constantly being manipulated into throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I was on a site where, somebody was asking about certain methods of something, numerology, and how can we use this, and I made some suggestions. Somebody else pops up and says, let's just stop thinking and go into the heart, stop the mind. Now, fine, I'm all for the heart, and I basically answered to the person that owns the site, because they were like, basically I don't quite agree with that either, because I said, look, for me it's insulting. First of all, it's like telling me to shut up. It's like telling me that whatever you say, or anybody who thinks and has ideas and promotes solutions or something on any level, it's telling them to shut up. And it's undermining their own mental creativity, assuming that anybody who thinks is heartless. They have no heart. It also assumes that you cannot function, you cannot have a heart if your mind is functioning. And it also seems to assume that if you do have a heart, you have to wear it on your sleeve and show it to the world and be sensitive expressively, like many New Agers seem to be, again, using that label, or many alternative spiritualists. I love you all. Let me hug you. Hugs and kisses and, all of this. And frankly, I feel uncomfortable with that because I don't sense the love coming out of the words. I sense the words of love that try to make me feel guilty for not playing this theatrical lovey-dovey performance. That's my opinion. I'm not saying everybody is like that, but so many people I've noticed that were some, oh, that's such a loving person. I don't really sense lovingness. What I sense is a performance of love, an expression of it, a body language of love. Psychopaths do the same thing. So many people have been fooled by psychopaths that they've said, oh, that's a loving person, you know. And so basically, because, and I also said that, well, such a person might have issues with their own heart. If I have a sensitive heart, I need to get out of my mind and get into my heart, into my trauma to deal with it at my level. But that's personal. I don't have to have the whole world follow me or do the same thing I'm doing. You know, if I want to understand psychopathy and my heart is too wounded to open up to the shadow, then loving myself is the most important thing. It's all about me, in other words. It's not about other people. Now, paradoxically, it is about other people because we're all connected. But when you try to get everybody to follow you, you're not affirming the connection. You're trying to create an artificial one where you are the center, where your suggestion in that case is met by an approval of other people. You want to shut people up because you want to engage in a social performance of what you truly owe to yourself. Again, who am I to tell you what you want to do? Well, this is an example. This is one case, and I'm not saying this particular person is like that, but I have met people like that. And I believe we need to consider these cases here because we are engaging in dialogue, especially on the internet and with each other in person and in our intimate relationships. And it's very important if we are to be empowered to understand the checks and balances of our interactions and to understand that the pivot point of all our interactions is us, each of us. We assume that if I say, well, it's all about me, the universe revolves around me. And people assume that this means that they have to all revolve around me. No. From your perspective, the universe revolves around you. Astrologers used to say, and people misunderstood this geocentric, but the earth is the center of the universe. Man is the center of the earth. So man is the center of the universe. Then astronomers go, well, no, the earth is on it revolves around the sun revolves around the galaxy, and it's at the butt end, at the rim of the galaxy, and all this revolves around everything else, so we're insignificant. No, why are we insignificant? I'm still me, and from where I stand, I see the sun revolving around the earth. I see the sun rising and setting. I don't see the earth moving. I see the sun, the stars, the sun move into different signs every month of the year. I see the moon revolving the earth. You see, so is my perception wrong? No, it's not, because I function from that perspective. I operate, I manifest, I create from that perspective. I don't create from a perspective of being at the butt end of the corner of the universe, revolving around some who knows what, that I'm nothing. And so I have to, this is how the peasants revolve around the king. So I'm a peasant and I revolve around the king or the governor or the president or the ruler who, like Ron said, oh, Obama is the ruler, so I would give my life for the sacrifice. No. We get into that we get into a whole heap of trouble. We've known that. Anybody who knows history is that's the problem. We cannot distinguish between an objective point of view and the importance of our subjective position in existence. We marginalize our subjective position, and so the ego steps in and tries to establish an artificial balance and eliminate the competition and create warfare. So then we are labeled selfish because we're trying to combat this imposition that marginalizes our value. We are valuable, but then again, if I say we are valuable, everybody's happy. They all feel good. Yes, we're all valuable. But what if I say I'm valuable? Then you'll call me selfish because I don't affirm your value. But that's not my job. It's not my job, but it's not my place. I would be imposing on you to be affirming your value specifically. It's okay to flatter you, for example. It's okay to say nice things, but it's not okay to critique you, even if it's constructive criticism. You know, people feel offended, but they want to be flattered. Well, if you're going to be honest about it, you'll say, no, I don't want to flatter you, and I don't want to offend you until I can figure out exactly a way to communicate where, you know, my true sense of evaluation can be taken for what it is, a loving sense that includes constructive criticism as well as affirmative constructive reinforcement. You know, a recognition of your positive traits as well as a recognition of what I feel is either offensive to me or unconstructive without you being hurt by it. And that is not all that easy. Until then, if I want to be empowered, I'm best served by focusing on myself, maybe keeping my opinions to myself in some sense until I become strong enough in the heart and in the mind and in the body to be able to engage with the responses. Because, as I said in the previous video, there is a consequence to everything. And that doesn't mean there's a judge out there seeking to punish us. It just means that when I throw a rubber ball at a wall, the ball's going to bounce back at me. You know, of course, there's a consequence to everything. If I make love, if there wasn't a consequence, I'd be a necrophiliac or whatever. You know, I'd be trying to make love to something inanimate, and even that has a consequence. If there were no reaction to every action, there would be no life, no manifestation, no nothing. Everybody would stop, everything would stop before it started. So again, let's examine ourselves, but not coldly. We can be critical without being cold. I can be intellectual without being a nerd. How do you do that? Well, that's where heart comes in. Heart is the lubricant of the mind. And the mind is meant to serve the heart, and but not just the heart. The mind is meant to serve the desire nature. This is the demon here. Desire is the demon in so many religions. It's the demon, as if, you know, if I go for my desires, then everything falls apart. How about my desire for a peaceful world? Is that bad? How about my desire for empowerment? You know, oh, the base desires, you know. Yeah, but they're only base because they've been cut off from everything else. They've been marginalized. Well, how do we connect them? Well, you have to start at home. You have to connect them in yourself first. How can you find global solutions when you cannot find local solutions? You know, how can you think globally without being grounded locally? And what is the greatest locality but your own being? So this leads me to another symptom, another effect. What that modern wizard person who made the videos, I like his comments a lot. And that first video he made about changing and owning the symbols, I've mentioned something similar, I believe, in the past as well. All occultists, many occultists, modern occultists, say the same thing. It's like, okay, you got this pentagram thing, and this symbolizes, you know, elements. It symbolizes certain energies. It symbolizes human potential. Now, why do you call this thing satanic? And what difference does it make if it's reversed or upright? So you're evil if you stand on your head, you know. It's just one of them goes into the earth, top down, you know, sky to earth, and the other one is earth to sky. So we demonize the sky to earth. That means God can't enlighten us. So we're actually calling the part that represents enlightenment. I mean, they have this inverted pentagram superimposed over the head of a goat with horns and evil eyes and all of this. And they don't realize that, well, this goat that the so-called Satanists use represents a domesticated agrarian animal, an animal that agrarian peoples domesticated. It's along the same lines as the bull and along the same lines as a stag, which was the primitive version, the older version before the agricultural civilizations came up. The stag god, you know, all of these were horned. And why were they horns? Because horns are like antenna and receive the sky energies. So anybody with horns, and look at the fleur de lis, you know, the symbol called the fleur de lis that royalty uses. If you look at the Baphomet figure, that one occultist had, Eliphas Levi. Basically, it's another horn kind of being, and you see the satanic being has two horns and then one in the center going up. There's three horns. And if you look at the court jester, the guy has a hat with two, two things with bells on the ends coming out, and sometimes there are three. And some of the figures of the devil also have a court jester type hat. This is the same thing. The court jester, the fool, was considered the wise person in the court, the only one who could make jokes with the king. So we're talking about the crown chakra that royalty uses as a crown in order to tell the people that they are holy and enlightened and thus have rights on their fucking free will. I am the enlightened one, you're stupid, I can tell you what to do because God is the mandate of heaven. The fleur de lis is the crown chakra. The fleur de lis is the central channel. There are three channels in yoga: the right, left, and the center, of course. And these horn things, whether of the bull, which is a fertile energy, and remember, the head of the bull in Semitic scripts, in Hebrew especially, became the letter Aleph, because Aleph or Alpu in Semitic means bull, ox. And this became the letter A, Alpha. Alpha is the bull, but in prehistoric iconography, the bullhead was the same as the feminine reproductive organs. Notice if you take a uterus and the tubes that come out with the ovaries, it looks like the horns of a bull and the head of a bull, the exact shape. And you see this in cave paintings and fertility rituals. So the male bull and the female reproductive organs are fused in meaning, which means the generative force that transcends human genders, but is incorporated into both of them. This is the letter A. But any kind of horned god and whatever, or horned whatever, is evil, Satan. So all of a sudden, the alpha is satanic, and you live in this crazy contradiction in your subconscious where the alpha and omega, God is evil. Of course God is evil, because your very symbolism, the very archetypes that are swimming around in your subconscious processes, you don't even know what's going on, but you're associating it with everything that's going on. That there is this sense that what should be natural is evil. You can see this in the repression of sexuality. And it's abuse, because we abuse it because we're not letting it flow. The ego comes out and turns into an asshole, turns us into assholes because we're not allowing our personality natural expression. This is common knowledge. This is psychology. This isn't just esoterics. So really, you don't really have either metaphysics or physics or metaphysics or psychology. It's both and. All of this combines. And so I fully agree with the reclaiming the symbols thing. But again, you start with yourself, because occultists know that they don't have symbols have universal meaning, but they have individual interpretation. So depending the universality of the symbol is unfathomable. No one person can really take the whole symbol. Each symbol is a god. People worship these things as gods or reference them to gods because God is a dynamic of enlightenment. The word for God, Deva, in Persian, Indo-Aryan languages, for example, means shining one, illumination. It's the force of illumination is always divine. It's not a being per se, but it can be personified. And we can be as gods if we are illuminated, and that's why illuminated people were worshipped. They were not worshipped, bow down and, bend over and take me and do whatever you want with me. I respect you, okay? When you respect somebody to an extreme, you revere them because they are the example. Because the illuminated one can deal with life, knows what's natural, knows what to do, and is never betraying themselves nor other people, because all of their resources, or at least enough, are activated so they don't have to. They're not even tempted to betray other people. So those who are weak, those are the ones that are seeking power because they are completely cut off from the path. And it's partially, again, there's no blame for this in the sense of it's your fault, you have to be punished. But responsibility lies When a person who can't accommodates and hurts others, they are responsible. But so is the person who can and doesn't. A person who can and does not try to mitigate the situation for those who can't is also responsible. In other words, if I can help you and I don't have to sacrifice if I help you, but I don't for whatever reason, then I am also responsible. So what happens? Well, God allows, shall we say, in those terms, or the universe, or free will, or whatever. Basically, the person who can starts adapting. They start getting clever. They say, how can I take advantage of this? If those high and mighties up in the mountain who are all enlightened don't turn to help all of us and enlighten all of us in a way that is satisfactory to us, then we're just going to take their power from them by hook or by crook. And so when the psychopath comes to us, yes, they come to us to wake us up. No, they come to us to kill us. They come to us because they are afflicted, they are cancerous. But from our perspective, that cancer is caused by a mutation for which we are partly responsible. As individuals, maybe not, because one lifetime cannot bear the weight of the responsibility of generations. It cannot. That's why some spiritual people, many believe in reincarnation, in order to expand the boundary. And if that's even true, it still means that, look, those people are dead. I'm the one alive. So I may not be the one who caused it, but I'm the one who is left to do something about it, And that's the bottom line. I mean, who cares who caused it? I don't care. That's not going to help me to point fingers. And you say, well, the psychopath caused it. Well, then why, when you remove the psychopath, 1,000 other psychopaths pop out of the blue? Why, when you remove the psychopath and have your perfect Atlantis sinks? What happens? Oh, then the world is messed up and it's faulty and God's fault and this and that and the other. Maybe so, but what is it that you are not doing? And that's not an accusation, because the bottom line paradoxically is you are not being self-centered enough, not selfish. When we call ism means it's an imitation of something. There's a word, Sophia, it means wisdom in Greek. Philosophy means friend of wisdom. So you have the wise person and the friend of wisdom who just talks about it and likes to hang out. But you also have sophistry, sophism. Sophistry means somebody who pretends to be wise, somebody who imitates wisdom very convincingly. The media is sophist. The psychopathic professionals who tell us we have to take our pharmaceuticals are sophists. They supposedly have wisdom about our health. This is sophistry. Now, however, there is wisdom in sophistry in the sense of this. One of the ancient Greek sophists, because this came, Socrates basically was battling against these people because he believed in objective virtues. He said, look, there's integrity, there's virtue, there's all these good things, honesty. You can't, these aren't relative. But the sophists said the following. They said, man is the measure of all things. So if I can convince you that the sun is not out while it's noon, then the sun isn't out for you. If I can convince you you're dead while you're alive, you're a corpse. Basically, we know the legal system does that. They are engaging in sophistry or propaganda or however you want to call it. But this is imitation wisdom. The thing is, however, they keep us from accessing this by negating the very fact, and this was the mistake of Socrates, in my opinion, was that man is the measure of all things, because man is the only being in the world that measures anything. You ever see a dog measure something? Man, the human being measures things. The human being assesses things. The human being assesses things in a specific manner. Every animal assesses things in a way. Here's the prey, here's the whatever, this is the place we want to go to the potty or whatever, but the human being actually measures and compares and contrasts in very specific, sophisticated ways compared to other animals in creation, in earthly creation. So this means that by our nature, we are self-centered. because we determine what we see. We evaluate it. And by evaluating, we essentially create a picture of what we see, a reality frame, a reality, an experience. Experience is nothing without evaluation. You cannot really say you've had an experience until you evaluate it because it doesn't hit home. It's not processed. Raw experience is only what behaviorists say. Behaviorist psychologists say we are black boxes. We have buttons. Push the right buttons, you can make people do anything. The psychopaths are all behaviorists too. They believe that if you can, stimulate and condition, you create responses. So people are like machines. Of course they are, if they don't measure and evaluate, if they don't discern. You cannot discern unless you are self-centered, because who will be discerning if you are scattered all over the place? If you are not the sun of your own solar system, who are you going to be? So geocentric, anthropocentric, the anthropocentric viewpoint, then we say, but that's a cruel viewpoint. Well, of course it is. If you're a psychopath, what's the center of the being? They call it the heart. The heart is the core and center of the being, the center of the true living being. In the image and likeness of the divine is love. Everything is love, but the sun is in the center of the solar system, but the whole solar system is full of light. It's full of warmth. It's full of the charges that come out from the sun. So every planet is what it is and does what it does because of the nature of the sun, or else it'd all be blocks of ice floating aimlessly about. The center, the heart, is what defines everything, but love has to be self-centered first before it can do anything. The sun has to be the sun before it can give life to the earth. If it tries to give life to the earth without being itself, then it's gone. It might even destroy the earth. It might explode and the earth is gone too. This isn't just a matter of if there's a plane crisis and the oxygen mask fall, you put the oxygen mask on yourself and then do it with the others. This is an attitude. This is a perspective. This is knowing, and people play with that perspective. They confuse us. They say, well, it's your opinion. Well, then if my opinion, then I'm self-centered. If it's my opinion, it's my reality. It's not just a frivolous, if I'm a serious person discussing a serious topic, which I have my own livelihood invested in, then it's, not just my opinion, but it's my reality frame and should be respected as such. And if it's respected, then you will allow me to be selfish in other things, as long as heartlessness on my end does not move to harm you. But that's your responsibility. Don't give me examples of children in third world countries or slave trade and whatever. We're talking about empowerment here. And we, each of us, those who are listening to this video, are responsible for their own empowerment from where they stand. Thus, I would, even if you're in dire straits, before you ask for psychic handouts, before you ask for prayers from people who can barely hold their own and are bombarded by everyone, seek your personal empowerment even a little bit. Take one step and be selfish. The Western version of selfishness is based on psychopathy. It's based on competition because it is a betrayal of selfishness, because you care about what the other person is doing when you're competing with them. A truly self-centered person is not concerned with other people moving against them. They are concerned with them, their own strength, their own health. It's like, okay, I'm into organic foods, I'm into exercise, I'm into all of these things. I want to be healthy, but instead of gauging my health by how my body responds, I go around asking other people, how healthy are you? Oh, look, they're healthy. Oh my God, I'm less healthy than them. Oh, they look better than me. Well, I know how to get healthier. I'll just bash them all over the head and feed them toxins. Then I'll be healthier relative to them. This is where that kind of weird, hypocritical selfishness or selfism takes us. Just like sophism, we have selfism. So I'm saying now that this is basically being truly self-centered means you have to face your heart. And if your heart is empty, by all means, and you don't want to engage your mind, don't. Step back from it. Don't deal with that stuff, you know. But if all you want is somebody to comfort you, then you better start looking at how you can comfort yourself. And saying I can't is not an option, you know. Can't means you're dead, you know. This is the only place where I agree with military people, you know, where, you know, there is no I can't, you know. There's only I don't want to, or I don't choose to. Because if you really want to, then you can, or else you wouldn't want to. But it doesn't mean, is it too hard? Well, take smaller steps. Empowerment begins with yourself, you know, always. So I believe we need to reevaluate this whole idea of selfishness versus selflessness, service to self. I mean, what is this? Why is service to self bad? Why does it have to deny everybody? If I live in a community, I will not be serving myself if I don't support the community. I depend on this community. You know, it's selfish. I'd be a hypocrite about saying it. So that means I should serve other people even if they kill me. Then I should serve psychopaths. You know, a lot of people do and die for them. You know, they're selfless. How great! You know, the psychopath convinces me to be a nice, selfless person because the master, with a triple crown that they also attribute to the devil as well as the king, pats me on the back. You know, we need to look at these things and the symbols. Now, this takes me to another thing that, you know, Mr. Modern Wizard said, with which I do not agree. Something is going on in the sense of an occult battle or something like that. And I really like it, however, when people into occultism, you know, because we've had a lot of new age spiritual light worker type people engage in the alternative thinking movement and have been very productive with it. People who were formerly religious became alternatively spiritual, et cetera, et cetera. But not too many practicing occultists have gotten into this, you know. They haven't really engaged because maybe the mindset is different, maybe the labels, maybe there's a clash between occult and new age and or different spiritualities. But I really like it when somebody like that gets in because, you know, they have a practical mindset in terms of certain ways to engage with your reality frame that most people couldn't even credit. Now, the thing is, however, if somebody, let's say some family of elites or whatever you want to call them, engages in some kind of psychic battle or magical whatever, and all of this happens with the bad guys, then the suggestion is to, you know, go help them, be present, show up, do something. And I'm saying that, well, you know, you got to know this, that if somebody is in that kind of desperate battle and they consider you a peasant, they're going to use you as cattle, as cannon fodder, for the one thing. They can very easily do that. If you want to put yourself in that position, be my guest. You might end up biting off more than you can chew. It's almost borderline arrogance because if you don't know what's involved in the situation, I mean, if you are psychic and magical enough, you know, what I would have done, even if I had suggested this, was to say, divine it. Use your tarot cards, use your pendulum, use your, you know, dream analysis, use something in order to be able to gauge the situation and what's going on there. And then you'll probably notice there are dark forces swimming around and all of that. Well, can you engage in the shadow in your own life? If you can engage in the shadow in your own life, believe me, you will become empowered enough that a natural exposure to these forces will occur in a way that benefits you directly so you can keep growing according to your desires. Leaping into a strategic tactical situation is what always the psychopaths have the advantage because psychopaths are the ones that invented strategics and tactics and warfare and all of that stuff. You know, in nature, there is no warfare. Predator prey zones are not warfare. You don't see ants are the only animals doing that, but ants are a hive mind. So you may say that the red ants are a single individual fighting for the territory of the black ants, which are a single individual. It's not warfare. Nowhere in nature does any species gather together in groups except for primates. And certain primates that have the same genes in us as us, like chimpanzees and the other kinds of monkeys, I forget their name, basically engage in raids and take the resources of their, brethren. But it depends on the community. Not all of them do so. But humans have been taken over by the mindset that says we got to go fight this group of people, and do that. And we do this in terms of occultism. We say white hats, black hats, the eternal battle of good and evil. Do you know where that came from? That came from, in the West, it came from the battle between Aryan families on either side of the Indus River. The Indus River has Pakistan and Afghanistan on one end and India on the other, and Kashmir on the other. So these people practiced yoga, they were sages, and their clans split into Western factions became Persians and Eastern factions, and the Persians were fire worshippers. They even said Abraham came from there, and he was a fire worshiper. They worshiped the one God. They were monotheists. The Indians worshiped the one God, but emphasized the many aspects of the one God. And so these factions basically started fighting. And one faction would call the shining enlightened ones of the other faction demons or evil ones. And the other faction, in Persian, the word ahura, asura, means God, but deva means demon. In Hinduism, deva means God, and asura means demon. So you have this, then somebody got up and made it a religion. Oh, since we're like this, the universe is like this. And then one of the emperors in Persia said, well, then I should conquer the world in the name of good and have everybody fight evil, because good needs an army. It needs to recruit, citizens to fight evil. And so here we go. The Egyptian did something similar. They had a big-ass chaotic period, starvation, cannibalism, and then a series of rulers. And finally, one ruler came up and said, okay, I beat evil. And the evil one was Seth, who was the other guy, the desert scorpion, whatever. And so now the balance is set, and I am the one who beat evil, so I determine what's justice in the world. And I am the voice of God. And then said, oh, wow, there's a good idea. And everybody started doing it. Egypt did it way before Persia, but Persia waged the first holy war in Western history, at least, and went out west, and they got stopped in Europe. So I'm saying all of this stems from the fact that we are not selfish. When you're not self-centered, you don't think, but you also deny your heart because you sacrifice it for some guilt trip that somebody else is giving you, because you're afraid you're going to be a bad person. Well, it is your responsibility here. You can't have a guarantee that you're going to stay a good person unless you're the one who is honest with yourself. So, I am not advising people to get into joining the battle. I am saying that what I've observed in psychic things is that it's a non-local battle, that if these families are fighting, then anybody who is good is going to suffer in the whole world, because when somebody attacks a cult, they don't attack just one person. Low-level occultists do that, but the ones that are really mean, they attack principles, principalities, they attack angels, they attack integrity, they attack the concept of love. So whoever is loving is going to suffer. So what you do is heal the shadow, so you take their fuel away from them, their resources away from them. If you're going to pray, you're going to pray for humanity healing. You're going to pray for the shadow healing. You're going to pray for love spreading. You're not going to pray for specific people, because even if you do, you are, in effect, you might even encourage their own hidden shadow aspects to come to the surface, because there's no competition with other shadow aspects. Even shadow aspects fight amongst themselves. And finally, there's one more practical thing. There is a sense of, on a practical level, this idea that, eventually we should all have on a totally different note, but still on the same topic, a subsistence salary. Basically, everybody should have a basic, income, because they're alive on this planet, at least enough to survive. And I'm saying yes. Now, the reason that there is contention against this is manipulation again. Selfishness versus selflessness. Where is the balance here in practice? Because a lot of people say, well, I'm working and I don't want to work for lazy people. Well, you're doing it already. You're working for the elite. You're working your butt off. You're laziest of all. The only time they're not lazy is when somebody's suffering. Then they're really into it, but they want you to work for them. So the thing is, the poor guy on the street, if he gets a little more, oh, what if everybody? Well, see, it's like this. It's the craziness where the few who want everybody to work for them as slaves are trying to convince us that it's not in our interests if the many are the ones who use the few as slaves. Now, that's not right either, but I'm saying that, hey, you're already a slave to a few people. So trying to fucking justify the few people just because you don't want a majority to be in, the only ones who are promoting that are the few people who are getting away with making us slaves, really, and they're convincing us. It's almost like the hardworking farmer is actually earning, no, they're not earning their bread, they're earning a fraction of it. Most of it's going to taxes and who knows what else. And, all kinds of things. And now the government in the U.S. is clamping down. They're buying them out and they're clamping down and they're arresting them. And everywhere in the world, you have this GMO influx and these big corporations and all of this buying out the food production. So I'm saying, okay, think of yourself, truly, be self-centered, and say the following. From a loving perspective, how much money does it take? Let's take the finances today. And all you have to do is calculate the amount of money, multiply the subsistence salary, let's say $500 a month. A subsistence salary, $500 a month for a family, shall we say, would amount to $750 trillion a month for everybody globally. 6 billion people divided by 4, assuming, generalizing that we have families of 2 children each in a generalized type of situation. Just a rough number. But it can amount to 1 quadrillion a month. And we say, oh my God, that's a shitload of money. Where are we going to find that money? Well, then take how much money is spent on the global military, for war. How much money is spent in the drug trade? How much money is spent on human trafficking? How much money is spent to chemtrail us, to toxify us? The pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, the Hollywood propaganda industry, the sports industry globally. How much, if you accumulate it per month, will you get? And then you have this whole other thing, free energy. How much money per month would free energy in the world save? How much money per month would a healthy dynamic of food production without being, balancing efficiency with natural dynamics, being local and all of that, how much would it, demand? I mean, first of all, people wouldn't get sick as much. They'd get sick very little if the food was healthy, if our air was healthy, if we weren't packed with radiation. What can we do? But in between, there needs to be a remediation. And before we can have a remediation, we need to eliminate the constant insanity that's going on. The fact remains, however, that if I am selfish and I become empowered, then I kind of don't need a subsistence salary because eventually my creativity will lead me somewhere where things take care of themselves, to a certain, at least my needs. If I focus on my needs and I always get what I need, a lot of people do this since a young age and they seem to not have a lot of money, but they always have their needs met, but a lot of other people are into money and have to sacrifice. But if you just have your needs met, you won't be in competition with greedy people. And greedy people doing black magic against us as a whole cannot penetrate that because they don't have an excuse. You see, that's the thing. The mind needs to be motivated to concentrate, and that's why, 1, we have to capitulate, and 2, they have to have a good reason. And that's why they keep us stupid, so we don't argue them out of their good reason. If we can convince them that they're not it's like the legal system. If you convince them that they're breaking their own rules that they need, they're going to be disempowered mentally. Their will be broken. And without will, you cannot create your reality. That's why the whole thing about the system is to break our will. And so the way that we strengthen our will, that is the core of this empowerment 101 thing, the basics of strengthening your will, not your stubborn mental egoic will, but your centered human nature, your desire nature. Without desire, there is no will. You know, you can't just will because somebody brainwashed you into thinking that this is the ideal. So we give our will to our leaders because they're going to do something. It's like occultists. You know, occultists tend to summon up these demons, a lot of them, or entities that are super powerful. So they go, okay, go kill that army over there. Yeah, but, you know, but how are you going to control that force? They can't control that force. And so they get stomped by it. They think they can convince some force that is 1,000 times stronger than them to go do this big thing, do this miracle, when, you know, well, but why don't you go do it yourself then, you know, instead of having a sucker, a proxy. But again, it doesn't mean that you cannot engage with the beings of the extensions of three-dimensional reality. There are such beings, and most of them have been demonized. And let me say, as a practicing esotericists, shall we say, that they are now trying to ally with humanity. Anybody who's an occultist, I advise them to drop the stupid preconceptions of the past about such beings and engage in a loving manner with them. If you affirm that you don't want to make a deal, but that you want to help evolution and the balancing of everything, I guarantee that unless it's a psychopathic emanation, where you should withdraw, then things you can enter into a very good intuitive alliance. I'm going to leave it there. So, my basic theme here is do not be afraid of being self centered. It is not the same as being selfish. It is not a denial dynamic. It is a dynamic of embracing because we're all connected, anyways. If I'm in my center, then I'm with everybody because everybody has me and them. Thank you so much once again, and we'll see where this goes next time.
Okay. Thank you,
Namaste.
Aristo. You have a beautiful week. And
You too.
next time, and this will not show until I've already done the video for tomorrow.
This will be on Saturday then.
It'll be the Saturday's video.
Okay.
So thank you.
Oh,
All right.
thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.